What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another trade recap for the day. We ended up going break even. A little awkward of a day. I wanted longs. Be completely honest with you, I wanted longs. We did not get longs. We ended up going break even, and then didn't even get any sort of entry for shorts whatsoever. So unfortunate day in the markets. But yeah, we're gonna go over it. Trade I took today, my reasoning behind it, everything like that, all that good stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Firstly, P&L ski on the day. Pull this up. Hopefully you guys can see that. $131.66 across 13 accounts. That's all we lost. Wasn't that much. Not that big of a deal. So let's get into it. So coming into the morning today, right? Check the 4-hour here first, of course. Right at this certain point. 1 second. At this point in time, this is what the charts looked like, right? This is what we were looking like. So we had this data high up here. This is NVIDIA earnings high, essentially, is what you can call it. This is technically a data high, right? So that's obviously a strong draw on liquidity. We had this untapped 4-hour below. I wanted to see us, obviously, trade into this 4-hour, and then from there, take a long up to data high, come up, sweep out data high. We looked pretty bullish. We had these relatively equal lows right here for this 4-hour gap. So I knew that we were probably going to come down, sweep this out, tap into this 4-hour gap for then a continuation higher. Unfortunately, we did not get the continuation that we wanted. We ended up just dumping down and continuing to push lower. But this was pretty obvious that we were going to take this out right away. But yeah, so what ended up happening, so this was a 4-hour gap, 1-hour gap, 15-minute, 5-minute, I believe. Like, it was like literally everything, right? So these gaps were very, very large. We knew that that's basically what we wanted to happen. Just unfortunate that we did not get that. So click through here. Market opens over here. Hold on, let me just get through this. Anyways, what ended up happening, so market ends up opening. And obviously we know that we're probably going to dump, right? And we do end up dumping. We end up coming all the way down, tapping into this 4-hour, taking out these relatively equal lows and all of this low resistance liquidity. Then we ended up putting an SMT at this low right here, which was perfect. Beautiful, exactly what I wanted to see. So right here at this moment, we came down, ended up putting an SMT at this low, right? As you can see right here. Right there. Boom. Put in an SMT at that low. And then, right, we're inside this 4-hour. We're inside this hourly, this 15-minute, this 5-minute. This is exactly what we wanted to see, right? A retrace, sweep out, manipulation lower for a continuation higher. Exactly what we wanted so that we can continue to go up and target all the way up here if you potentially wanted to, right? Now, what ended up happening off of this? Well, we got exactly what we wanted to. The manipulation lower, we had the SMT. We were holding that. And we ended up forming a 30-second inverse right here, right? 30-second gap. Now, off this gap, you're not going to be able to see it on the 1 minute. I don't have the 30-second on TradingView because that's stupid. I have it on Project X. We ended up getting the inverse right here. This was where I entered this trade at. We had a very nice break even right here. Entry on the 30-second was right here. Looked perfect. A clean 30-second inverse for a continuation higher off of this SMT, this 4-hour, like literally everything perfect. The only thing that could have been better is if we had a higher time frame inverse, like a 1 minute or a 2 minute. Other than that, bro, this trade was really good, right? We had this low resistance liquidity up here. We had this 5-minute that we could have gone break even at. We hadn't formed it yet, but this internal high right here would have been that 5-minute. So everything was looking perfect, right? Entered this trade right here, and I put like $100 risk on this because this was a 6-to-1. So taking this all the way up here to this low resistance was a 6-to-1. So $100 would have made me $600. Would have been my normal win, and I was confident that we were realistically going to do that, right? So put $100 on this, ended up hitting that break even, and then boom, coming back down. We got stopped out break even, unfortunately. And then we kind of just continued to dump for the rest of the day. And I was just waiting for another re-entry long. This one right here, this 1 minute looked really good. I believe this was also a 2-minute at the time. Yes, this, wait, maybe not. There was a 2-minute at some point. I think it's probably right here. Actually, no, we closed the 2-minute. I remember that. We closed the 2-minute. We had this 1 minute that looked really good that we almost inversed. Have a ton of low resistance right here. right? So this still looked good to me. I was still looking for longs just because we're inside this 4 hour. I'm not going to short if we're inside of a 4 hour gap, 4 hour bullish gap in this scenario. Obviously, if it's bearish, yes, you want to short. But a high time frame gap like that, a 4 hour gap, your boy is not shorting that until we actually close below. So unfortunately, we ended up just dumping for the rest of the day and not actually getting any sort of retrace, as you can see, right? We just ended up dumping, continued to dump, and we did have a 5-minute right here. Right here was where I wanted to go break even, right? We had that 5-minute, but we never even ended up tapping into it, right? So my thought process was we take this 30-second, tap into this 5-minute, we're break even. If we get stopped out, then we look for an inversion back to the downside for shorts, right? Because if we're going to respect this 5-minute, then obviously we want to push a little lower. But like I said, we did not get that, unfortunately. And then obviously zero retrace, zero gaps even formed here. And then there was one more 30-second entry. We ended up taking out all this low resistance. We ended up putting in another SMT at this low. Down here, as you can see, we took out all this low resistance. Ended up putting in another SMT. We tapped into another hourly and 4 hour gap right here. Smaller, but still tapped into it and had that SMT there. And then there was a 30-second entry again right here. We had all this low resistance here, and then we had equal highs right here in the 30-second. So pretty good trade there. Unfortunately, I was not on the charts to even look at this, but if I was, probably would have taken the trade. Just sucks that I was not on the charts. But this is what that trade would have been like, something like this, I believe, around here. But that trade would have been a good trade as well. But with that being said, that's trade recap from today. Unfortunate that we ended up just dumping, not getting any sort of retrace, but it is what it is. We're green on the week, barely, mostly like break even, barely green. Took the W on Tuesday, then the loss on Wednesday, and then break even today. So unfortunate, but that's kind of been how February is going. February is like fade February. Like, who can fade the most setups, essentially? Like, there's going to be months where everything's just flying, right? You're having A+ setup after A+ setup, and it's all working. They're all doing well. They're all working. It's just being amazing, right? And that was November. Last time I remember, November and the first 2 weeks of December were really, really good. And it was awesome, right? Because we were actually taking trades. We were able to hit TP, all of that stuff. It was beautiful. And then there's going to be the months where it's just kind of slow, right? You're break even, maybe a little bit in the green, but all that you're doing is damage control, right? You're trying to fade the most setups and just get to the point where price action is good again and you have a good month, right? Because not every single month is going to be a good month. Not every month is going to outperform your last month. It's just, back and forth. And this is one of those months where you have to be very, very particular in the trades that you want to take, because if you're not, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, right? And obviously we could see the trade from yesterday, shouldn't have taken that. The first one probably should have been half of the loss that it was. And then today just sucks that it didn't play out. But that being said, that's it for me. Like I said, if we take a trade tomorrow, you'll catch me tomorrow. If I don't take a trade, you won't see me. But I'll catch you boys later. Peace out.